trolling Senator Elizabeth Warren as a snake, and in post after post, labeling Mayor Pete Buttigieg a rat. Two victims of this tell CNN they were so afraid of the online attacks they faced, they don't even want us to describe the circumstances for fear it would start up again. They both just questioned the politics of Bernie Sanders in a public setting, and their personal lives were exposed and attacked.
Well, just what Nick said, I think that's right. I mean, there isn't a Democratic establishment anymore. There's not even a Democratic Party anymore. The Democratic Party is a meaningless notion. That the party, like the Republican Party, has been hollowed out and privatized to a large extent. There are Democratic elites, and so when we're talking about the Democratic establishment, we're really talking about a bunch of people that Nick also knows well, which really means Democratic donors.
This is the most important election in the history of our country.
This election is the most important in the modern history of this country.
The election in 2020, without hyperbole, is going to be the most important election this country has undergone in over 100 years. Not a joke.
This November's elections are more important than any I can remember in my lifetime, and that includes when I was on the ballot.
There are just 8 days left in what is the most important election of our lifetime.
Where did you guys come to a conclusion about why Clinton had such a hard time just owning that she did something wrong with the email server?
You know, I know that Russia and other forces would love us to have a debate. This is exactly what they want. They want us to have a debate about the internal structure of Hillary's campaign, what's true, what's not true. And I'm just not going to play that. I'm sorry.
Yes, we came, we saw, we died.
I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It's like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
You know, people have said, if you look at, for example, the heat that ended up around the bend the knee, Colin Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. Many smart people have said it actually was not a thing. The Russian bots started taking out. Yes.
But I saw my mom. My mom is the strongest woman I know.
She should be running.
This is not about.
If you're like me, one of the millions suffering from pain caused by migraine, Nurtec ODT may help. It's the only medication that can treat a migraine when it strikes and prevent migraine attacks.
Trump and the Republicans lose on Tuesday, and if they lose badly, it's not going to be because of the left, whatever that means. It's not because of the 50 Antifa black mask guys who roam around the United States breaking windows and committing mayhem, most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Rudy Giuliani, there's only three things he mentioned in a sentence, a noun and a verb and 9/11. I mean...
I'm going to try to get through this. Thank you for what you did 3 years ago today.
And I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. If we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
I can't do it.
We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
Citizens of the internet, welcome to another exciting edition of the Politics Show. Coming at you, coming at you live and in your face with Operation Epic Fail. Happening now. New war. America, everybody's cheering.
Yay! Yay! Yay!
A couple of weeks ago, the Trump administration started what I referred to as Operation Epic Fail. And a lot of people who are much more popular than I am, let's say, like Max Blumenthal, and well, deservedly so. Let's be honest. You know, I have no delusions of grandeur. People like Max Blumenthal began calling it Operation Epstein Fury, which is a very interesting kind of analogy to make when you consider the difficult security incidents that have recently materialized out of this war. And, you know, I have a couple different segments for you today to go through and discuss some, mostly about propaganda, war propaganda, because we are back in the thick of war propaganda. And this is turf that I am very familiar with, being a child of the Iraq War era. I used to play in a band and we made an entire record called Appetite for Distraction based on Iraq War propaganda. And so familiar territory for me. So that's obviously something that we're going to be discussing. But I thought we'd do something a little bit unique today and start with a update on the current status of the war. And this is, I thought, probably the most accurate status update I could give you as to where we currently stand in this war. The Trump administration has proven themselves very, very agile and adept at one thing and one thing only. And that one thing, of course, is painting a media picture. Attempting to paint a media picture, because if you watch the CENTCOM channels and Fox News, America's winning. You know, we're really sticking it to the Iranians. But if you're paying attention to what's actually happening on social media and picking up the clues, Iran has destroyed multiple American bases, has basically forced the American military out of the Persian Gulf. We covered last week, you know, they kind of began by attacking a lot of the threats to them that the U.S. has built up over the years, encircled them with directly and taking those out. And so now that they have taken those out, they're really getting down to business. And a lot of the most recent stuff that I've heard is that the U.S. and Israel are out of interceptor missiles for their air defense. And Iran, from what I can see so far, is basically just slamming Israel and other American bases with, you know, untethered, you know, missiles, basically unguarded. What's the best way to say that? Unobstructed, basically. They're shelling the crap out of Tel Aviv and other parts of the Middle East. And I think there's a tweet that hold on a sec, let me go back here. Just to give you an idea, and this is, again, I can't vouch for all of this, so don't hold me to this, YouTube. But this is some of the footage that we're getting. This is from Iran launched this missile called the Mashar 4. Now, I guarantee if you tune into Fox News, you'll be able to see all this stuff that the United States is doing on the ground. But I asked a question recently, and that was about the casualty numbers, because it's very clear that the casualty numbers are not being accurately reported. And you can tell that because there's a lot of stuff that's been hit, and the way that they're covering this war, it's the most, for all the transparency that we have via social media and, communications and everything, this is the most propagandized war I think I've ever seen, in the sense that they're able to hide everything. It's funny because when it first started, I was talking to some people in my family at a family dinner, and this was a couple weeks ago, probably 2 weeks ago, almost to the day. And I remember saying, hey, look, it's not looking good. I from everything I can see on Twitter, the U.S. military is getting pushed back, and Israel's getting hit with missiles, and they're almost out of interceptors. And my relatives are like, no, that's not the truth. Like, you can see, and then they were like, hey, France is coming in, and they've got all this other, and so then he ended up sending me this video about satellite technology and how Google has mapped everything and how we can totally watch everything via satellite. Not even like an hour later, I get on Twitter and there's a notice about how the satellite company's delaying satellite imagery for 2 weeks, for 14 days, basically, so that people can't see what's actually going on, which it makes sense that you would delay satellite imagery in the event of a war, just because, you don't want to give the quote unquote enemy access to tools that they could use against you on the battlefield, but also they have better ones, I would imagine. This idea, like the Chinese thing, right? This is my little conspiracy theory, just to go down a rabbit trail here with you. The Chinese build everyone's phones. So even in Israel and the United States military, they might have these super guarded, like super secure phones. But if the Chinese created the chips that are in those phones, there could be backdoors, and more than likely are backdoors, as I've covered on this show before, in those chips. So you have this whole other security risk aside from, and the Chinese and the Russians and the Iranians are not stupid people. This is the thing that I think American arrogance and American exceptionalism has made us so arrogant and stupid that we can't understand. Like, the idea that we're going to just roll in and take over a country that has existed for almost 3,000 years, it's just ludicrous. And I don't understand how people, especially people my age who lived through the Iraq War, can support this. And to their credit, there are a lot of conservative MAGA people who didn't vote for this, and they are being very vocal about it. And I wonder, we're going to go deep into this a little bit, but I wonder if the election results had been for the other party. I know for a fact we would be where we are now at some point. Maybe not yet, but we would be doing a war with Iran under Kamala Harris. But I wonder if the people who are opposed to it on the Democratic side would be opposed to it if Trump wasn't at the helm. That's the thing that is constantly running through my head. We got Willie on board. Willie, I just saw your message on Twitter, brother. Forgive me. I don't check my DMs on Twitter much. So let's do a joint broadcast soon. A lot to catch up on, a lot to talk about. I think it's my turn to come on your show. So hit me up, send me a message on Twitter or email. You should have my email too, but I can send it to you. But yeah, let's do something soon. Anyway, back to the subject at hand. I think so. I was one of the people. I didn't vote in the last election cycle, but I was one of the people who argued, and I think I still believe this is the case, despite everything that's going on, that Trump was the lesser of two evils. I'm going to show you why in a minute. Yeah, whenever you want. I should be free most of the week, so yeah, let me know what's. I can work around your schedule. I'm pretty flexible, so. So going back to what the thread that I'm going on here, basically, it's interesting because right now what's going on is you have this this dynamic where Donald Trump keeps saying, we won the war, we won, Iran's military has been completely dismantled. And then I keep seeing news like this. And I said, I seriously love Iran, but urgent, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, Ali Larijani, we have received urgent messages from Donald Trump through our mediators. He's begging for the opening of an immediate negotiation channel to achieve a ceasefire. Our response is that Iran will accept no form of negotiation, yield to no pressure, and sign no ceasefire as long as an illegal and criminal entity called Israel exists on the map of our region. So these guys have the Trump administration by the short and curlies, to use a phrase. However, just to show you the disconnect between reality and propaganda, in case you haven't seen it, let's just peruse real quick Fox News for you. This is Fox News. This is the Fox News homepage right here. Let me show you this. Iranian official makes claim about Supreme Leader's health after Trump says he could be dead. Credibility, FCC chairs warns. So the other thing you have going on, in addition to them censoring Twitter, yeah, so even Fox News has kind of laid off. They used to have, they have this now Fox News's tone has even changed a little bit. They're just like, oh, is that guy dead or not? Because the other day they had a bunch of stuff about how we're going to take Iran and we're winning and getting ready to replace the leader with a new guy. But for now, they've just got this Iranian official makes claim about Supreme Leader's health, says he could be dead. On the other hand, you have the actual leaders of Iran making comments about Trump begging them to negotiate and them saying, no, we're not going to negotiate. And why would they negotiate with us at this point when every time they've attempted to negotiate with us, their negotiators have been killed in this, it's the worst scum piggery you've ever seen. And we expect them to sit down and come to the table. No, we're the forces of Israel in the United States, the forces of the empire are getting what they deserve right now. And Iran is taking a hit. But I saw a video of them recently, patching up a street that the U.S. had demolished. You have to remember, this is a country that has thrived to the point that it's kicking our ass in a global war under sanctions. We have sanctioned them for 60 years and kept them out of the global market and forced them to become an independent entity. And obviously they're working with Russia and China, which why wouldn't they? If those countries are going to provide them what they need. But we've strengthened them. Look at what our sanctions have strengthened them and made them a more independent nation. And I say that because, and I might have touched on this last time we talked, but if we get to a situation where it becomes a matter of who can produce the most missiles, or it's a war of attrition, who can produce the most missiles and drones the fastest, the U.S. ain't winning that war. To even make the drones we have now, we have to rely on China. And that's why Taiwan is such a big deal, because we get a lot of the parts, the military, which is a massive national security threat, especially when they're being so belligerent towards China. All China has to do, God bless them, all China's had to do to beat the U.S. empire is just sit back and watch. Sit back and watch us self-implode. Sit back and watch the U.S. empire implode, which it's doing at a massive scale right now. And there's a lot of people, myself included, that have floated the idea that maybe Trump did this on purpose and just gave Israel all the rope it needed to hang itself, because they had to know we're running low on missiles. They've been waging a proxy war via Ukraine for the last, 5 years now. Was it 5 years? No, it hasn't been that long. It started in 2023. So almost going on 3 years, basically. And before that, let's be honest, they were sending weapons and money to Ukraine before Putin invaded. So the war was kind of going on before the official 2023 invasion happened. Anyway, but I used to think maybe Trump was doing the 5D chess, but now I see he's not that smart. And what I think is really happening, just to give you my kind of unvarnished opinion on what's going on right now, before we move into the segments I have prepared, I think what's happening is the fumes of the Venezuela thing got to his head, and the people around him that are the most neocon and hawkish convinced him that this would be great and easy. I think it's obvious when you look at how he's kind of attempted to sidestep some of the questions in press conferences, because to Trump's credit, unlike Joe Biden, Trump is very out there and visible and talking to the press, even though, he's like, the fake news. So if you saw, he pretty much immediately was like, well, Israel made us do it, or like Hegseth and Rubio and those guys all convinced me to do it. And so I do think there is an element of that, a strong element. And I'm not saying that he deserves a pass for that reason. Obviously, he's a big boy who can make big boy decisions. And he definitely had other voices in his ear telling him not to do it, like Tulsi Gabbard and maybe Vance. I don't know if that's just PR, but definitely Tucker Carlson. And the reason I preface all this for you is the thing that I woke up to this morning was on Twitter. It kind of took me back to the Bernie campaign days. And the reason it took me back to the Bernie campaign days is during the Bernie era is when I learned that the Democrats were against me. The Democrats were not my friends. We very quickly figured out in 2016, and then had it proven positive to us in 2020, that the Democrats are enemies of, real progress and progressive policy. And I say progressive because I don't want to use the term left anymore, because I don't think left and right are actually valid terms. And to me, a progressive policy is a policy that works well for everybody and is moving the ball forward, like healthcare, for example, public healthcare. We live in a, ancient, antiquated Ponzi scheme of a healthcare system where a few people make a bunch of money and we can't change it for that reason. So you get the idea. Basically, I would say, the Democrats are not your friends. So to circle back around to the last election cycle and the Trump versus Kamala thing, and the whole kind of idea of like, oh, well, if we had voted for Kamala, this wouldn't be happening and all that kind of stuff. There's a dynamic now where the real anti-war people, whether they're on the right or the left, because there's a lot of right-leaning anti-war people that voted for Trump because he said he was not going to do wars. Now what you have is the establishment Democrats trying to walk this tightrope where they want to be able to say they support the war with Iran if it goes well, but now that it's looking more and more like it's a liability, they want to attack Trump for it. And in addition to Trump, they want to attack people that supported Trump. And a good example of this is right here. This is Krystal Ball attacking Tucker Carlson this morning. Tucker's efforts to pin sole blame for the Iran war catastrophe on Israel is such a transparent ruse to wash the blood off the hands of the men he worked 3 times to put in office and by proxy avoid culpability for his own role in this disaster. So right off the bat, I have to go, what? What is going on? What? Krystal Ball is attacking Tucker Carlson. Now, her partner, Sagar, first of all, was, kind of brought into the industry under Tucker Carlson. He worked for Tucker Carlson, as I'm sure you probably know. But Sagar just did an episode with Tucker where they talked about all this kind of stuff. So it's odd for Krystal Ball to be suddenly attacking Tucker Carlson. And this is one of the reasons I'm glad Kamala Harris didn't win, because if she did win, Krystal Ball would be a huge supporter of the girl boss regime change going on. Yay! Yay, girl boss regime change. America! Yay! America! Yay! That's my mashup of the America! Yay! That would be Krystal Ball if Kamala Harris had won and we were invading Iran right now. Tucker has the ear of the president, on the other hand, and has repeatedly advocated against the war publicly. And in fact, voted for Trump because Trump said, hey, I'm not going to do the wars. The most honest people on the political stage right now, the political commentary stage right now, are the people who voted for Trump and are pissed off that he's not doing the things that they voted for him to do. The Tucker Carlsons, the Dave Smiths, the Clint Russells. These people are on it. The Marjorie Taylor Greene. These are the most honest people in the debate. And then you have snakes like Krystal Ball who are trying to pretend like the Iran war is Tucker Carlson's fault because he advocated for Trump to win the election. It's a reach. So here's Yusuf Ibrahim jumping in. LOL, what? It's your Zionist cadaver, Joe Biden, and the half-wit Zionist hyena, Kamala Harris, that started funding the Holocaust in Palestine. Undeniably the main trigger of this grand war. The deflection will not do. Both Zionist-occupied administrations and our Zionist-occupied Congress, with a few exceptions, are to blame. Stop trying to divide this country. Stop now, for the love of God. And I just want to, real quick right here, throw an applause. So a lot of people besides Tucker advocated voting for Trump. And Krystal Ball's totally cool with someone like Dave Smith. So here is Dave Smith talking about his choice to vote for Trump. Listen.
I do feel like, again, whatever. I shouldn't spend too much time defending myself here. I'll leave it to other people to do that. But I feel like if you go back and listen to any of the episodes, even when I said I was supporting Donald Trump, I mean, I think there was one, I once referred to it as the most unenthusiastic vote in the history of voting. I basically said that it was just a middle finger to Kamala Harris. And I was particularly, I didn't support Trump all the way through the campaign. It was at the very end when Kamala Harris started bringing Liz Cheney out on the campaign trail with her, and then giving a whole fucking, like in the most idiotic Kamala Harris, giving a history lesson about how World War II means we gotta fight stuff.
I read
War
that
II,
quote in a speech one time and just killed. Everyone was just dying laughing.
I mean, it's just ridiculous, dude. But anyway, but I was never really selling Donald Trump as, oh no, he's the peace president, he's going to be against the wars. I was, let's say, extremely cautiously optimistic that, like, well, I mean, the establishment really has pissed him off this time. They've really tried to put him in jail and maybe even tried to kill him. And okay, look, he's bringing in Tulsi Gabbard, and he's bringing in, kind of figures like J.D. Vance. He picked him instead of Ruby. There was like some, maybe this, I will say this, and this is, I think, where I really got things wrong. And I think this, I was very I realized how I had gotten things wrong last summer during the 12-day war, was that I guess I always said, in fact, I believe it's on record, but it was when Zach and Liz had me on their show, and they said, what's the number one concern about a second President Trump term? And I went, oh, well, Iran is the number one concern. Like, he's a real hawk on Iran.
And then Liz said that he won't attack. Yeah, that is a danger.
That's not exactly.
So yeah, I think, again, how can you argue with the case that Dave is making there? I don't think anyone was naive enough, even the people that voted for Trump. And that's why it bothers me to see a lot of like lefties and people who are, wisely against the Democratic Party kind of attacking people who voted for Trump for these reasons, as if, the other option was better. You know what I mean? Like, what were they supposed to do, really? You get a plate full of steaming shit, or you get a plate full of steaming shit with sprinkles on top. That's the difference between the two parties. And a lot of people took a chance on Trump. I didn't vote, but I said repeatedly, to me, Trump is the lesser of two evils. And he mentioned, the Liz Cheney thing. Here's Jose Vega. What a dumbass idea it is for Kamala Harris to go around with Liz Cheney. And she definitely did campaign with Liz Cheney, which is, I think, one of the biggest reasons she lost. They'll never admit this, but here she is.
I was just with one of the leaders, and I think opinion leaders in the Republican Party, Liz Cheney.
Didn't Liz Cheney lose her election? Was she still elected at this point?
I was just with one of the leaders, and I think opinion leaders in the Republican Party, Liz Cheney.
And the Democrats really can't really pretend like they weren't leaning hard into the neocon pro-war. That's what they do, because the idea with someone like Obama or Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris is like, hey, look, it's going to be much easier for us to sell a war with a country like Iran if we have a colored woman's face on it. Because then it's like, oh, you're just a sexist racist if you don't support our war on Iran. Where now, under Trump, yeah, they're still going to get their war, but it's a lot harder to sell to everybody. And you see that now. Some of the Democrats who suspiciously prevented a vote from happening by Congress that Masih and Ro Khanna were pushing are now pretending that it's the end of the world, like Elizabeth Warren and fucking Chris Murphy as an example. And just to show you how hard the Democrats went on selling the neocon agenda, here's a video of Liz Cheney on The View with Whoopi campaigning for Kamala Harris. Just quick trip down memory lane here, just to remind you how bad this got.
I have a question. Are you also a lawyer?
Yeah. I am.
So you could conceivably be a great AG if this was...
Yay!
And I say this because your moral core is magnificent. I know you probably don't want to, you don't want to think about it, but I just feel like I would feel a lot better with you leading the FBI, the CIA, the NBC, the So I'm just saying, should it be floated? Please think about it.
And under the radar. We have to get Vice President Harris elected tomorrow.
Well, you know, I'm being...
You're putting it out there in the universe.
I'm putting it in the universe. That's how we do things. Go ahead,
real quickly.
Oh my God. Oh my God. And, you know, The View being the, you know, bastion of journalistic integrity that they are, and totally not on the payroll to help Kamala Harris win the election, totally not, you know, in the tank for the Democrats on any level whatsoever. I promise they're definitely not. Didn't bother to look up any of the footage of Liz Cheney before she was campaigning for Kamala Harris. So here's Liz Cheney like a year before this.
As somebody who is a centrist.
2 years.
And
2 years
in one fell swoop here, he has put somebody on the ticket whose voting record in the Senate is to the left of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. So I think that, you know, the American people are...
Remember how they tried to paint Kamala Harris as to the left of Bernie Sanders? People were like, oh, my, I remember the Bernie people were like, oh my God, if only that were true. I wish she was to the left of fucking.
They're going to look at the substance of this. They're going to look at what she stood for in the past. They're going to look at what she said during the primary election. And it's very clear. She is a radical liberal. She's somebody that has said we ought to spend $32 trillion on Medicare for all. If you look at her record as well in California, she did, in fact, essentially ban gun sales with executive action. And she threatened during the primaries to do the same thing if she's elected, if she's faced.
These people, the drama that they bring, she being, oh my God, she's to the left of Bernie Sanders. Yay! So the whole thing is fake as fuck. And just to circle back again, remember Krystal Ball supported all that we just walked through with Kamala Harris and told you to vote for it. And now she's going to clutch her pearls about Tucker Carlson supposedly enabling Trump's war with. Shut up, Krystal Ball. So here is from yesterday, a quick video that Tucker Carlson posted about what's going on in his life right now.
So the other day I found out that the CIA is preparing some kind of criminal referral against me, a crime report, to the Department of Justice on the basis of a supposed crime I committed. What's that crime? Well, talking to people in Iran before the war.
Now bear in mind, Krystal Ball's attack on Tucker came out after this. What a fucking fake she is. Oh my God.
My texts. So the crime under consideration apparently would be the Foreign Agent Act or something like that, acting as an agent of a foreign power. And I don't expect this to go anywhere. I'm not too worried about an actual criminal case against me for a bunch of reasons. One, I'm not an agent of a foreign power. Unlike a lot of people commenting on U.S. politics and global affairs, I have only one loyalty, and that's the United States, and have never acted against it. Its interests are the only interests I care about because I'm from here and I have a lot of kids. So that's not a concern. I've also never taken money from anybody. Don't need it, don't want it, and that's provable. And moreover, it's my job to talk to everybody all the time and try and figure out what's happening around the world. That's literally what I do for a living. And I'm not going to stop doing that. Nor should I don't think. I'm also an American. I can talk to anybody. I have no secrets to divulge. So legally, I think the case is ludicrous, and I doubt it will even become a case. I'm bringing this up for a couple of reasons, though, and they're pretty obvious. One is that countries tend to become more authoritarian in wartime. It's just the nature of war. People are dying. The stakes are high. People's emotions have risen to a very high point, to a crescendo. And so there's much less tolerance for any kind of dissent in the homeland. The irony, of course, is the United States fights wars on behalf of freedom, but there's always less of it here in our country during war. So that's a widely recognized phenomenon, and it's likely to happen now too. Another point to make that is worth knowing is that the USIC, the intelligence agency, spy on Americans. Now, you probably knew that, and it's been revealed a lot, including by Julian Assange and Ed Snowden, both of whom are threatened with death for revealing it, but everyone knows. But it's probably a little more widespread than most people understand, and it's outrageous. There's no justification for your government, which you own, you're a shareholder in it, you pay for it, to be violating your privacy like this. But it happens all the time. And in fact, one of the reasons that CIA, or people within CIA, just to be clear, it's a huge, sprawling, disconnected agency. What it does in a specific case doesn't represent what everybody in the building thinks, but there are some people who are mad at me for my views about Israel, and they have some latitude. And one of the reasons they pass on criminal complaints, in effect, to law enforcement is to justify warrants for spying on Americans. So that is an absolutely real thing. But the main reason they do it is to leak the existence of the investigation, such as it is, to the media, and then humiliate and terrify the subjects of this op. And that's, of course, happened to me repeatedly, many times. Including in famously 2021 when I was still at Fox News and trying to set up an interview with Vladimir Putin. And the NSA, I heard from someone there, had grabbed my text messages with an American citizen and had leaked them to news outlets. Those texts were basically my attempts to set up an interview with the foreign head of state. And they leaked them to the New York Times in order to stop the interview, which they successfully did, by the way. And they admitted that they were spying on me. This is not a fantasy. It actually happened. They did it again 2 years later. My second attempt to get a Putin interview, I managed to get it anyway. And they've done it since. And so when you get a call from a reporter who knows the contents of your texts, it's pretty clear something's going on. None of this, in my judgment as of right now, is a huge threat to me. So I'm not making this video to complain about it or whine or ask you to send me money because I'm under attack. I'm saying it because it's true, and you should know what your own government is doing, and you should know what the stakes are. And you should know that a lot of what happens in this country that affects outcomes happens behind the scenes. Some of it is legal, some of it is not, including what I'm describing now. But it has an effect. And the intel agencies, again, not everyone in the intel agencies, because there are decent, hardworking Americans who work in the intel agencies are Americans, just like there are decent, hardworking Americans who work at the DMV. But there are also people with agendas and grudges and no sense of restraint who are happy to misuse the power they have granted them by our elaborate secrecy laws to hurt fellow Americans for ideological reasons. That is entirely real. That's the story of Russiagate. And it's likely that things like that will begin to happen at greater scale now. So you should just know that going forward. Thanks.
Keith Olbermann was asked how he felt about his fellow journalists' emails being read by the CIA, and this was his response.
I heart feces. I heart feces.
Thank you, Keith. We appreciate your feedback.
Yay!
So, one of the more honest voices in the political debate, crazy village crazy lady, excuse me. I almost said crazy village lady. Same, a little dyslexic, but the same basic thing. She kind of summed it up right here. She said, here's what's going on, folks. The war is going very badly, and the only options Trump has are retreat or escalate with the ground troops. Now, before I go into this, though, I would like to show you the breaking news on the Tucker CIA thing. I jumped the gun a little bit here, but Laura Loomer says she was the one who reported Tucker to the DOJ, hoping to send him to prison for speaking out against Israel. Imagine that. So basically what we have here is Laura Loomer and Krystal Ball are on the same stage, the same page as each other. Laura Loomer and Krystal Ball, both attacking Tucker Carlson. Krystal Ball's angle is a little bit different. You know, I'm sure Laura Loomer's angle is that Tucker Carlson is a secret agent of Iran because he talked to someone there before the war, trying to maybe get their which now you would think, you know, based on what's going on now, what's effectively happening with the complete, you know, obliteration of a large portion of our bases and another one of our very friendly countries. In retrospect, maybe if they had actually tried to talk to Iran and like learn something before they did this, they might not be in the position they're in. But I digress. Back to Mel's tweet here. Here's what's going on here, folks. The war is going very badly, and the only options Trump has are retreat or escalate with ground troops. big mistake, but let's keep going. The former means probable annihilation for Israel or the possible use of nuclear weapons. The latter means an end to Trump's presidency for all practical purposes, and the GOP as a whole for the next decade. Israel first rightly understands that they are the ones who will bear 100% of the blame for the latter. So they are working overtime to shut down, taint the most popular conservative in America so that disaffected GOP voters won't have any appealing alternatives to Trump that they can rally around. That's also why they had to take out Charlie. If Charlie were still alive and Tucker had access to TPUSA's nationwide network of young conservatives, they could have organized and staged an effective American First protest to this madness. Now Tucker is left alone with nothing more than his albeit giant microphone to defend himself and our country against the thousands of small to medium voices trying to destroy him and America. And you see this with, guys like Mark Levin. Good old Mark Levin.
You go back to your home on Whore Island.
But Mel kind of lays it out. Tucker's one of the guys who, again, has a direct line to the president and is actually dissenting. And then you have fake-ass Krystal Ball pretending that Tucker's trying to exonerate Trump by blaming Israel. That was the crux of her tweet. She's basically saying that Tucker Carlson is trying to shift the blame for the war onto Israel to exonerate Donald Trump. Tucker's efforts to pin the sole blame for the Iran war catastrophe on Israel is such a transparent ruse to wash the blood off the hands of the men like he's doing it for his own self-interest. No, Krystal, he doesn't think like you do. He actually does care about America. He's been thrown off Fox. He was thrown off Fox. He's been canceled multiple times for speaking his mind about things that, whether you agree with him or not, you know that the guy is honest. I would venture, if you disagree with me, for you to show me proof. But anyway, you have Krystal Ball here trying to pretend that the entire point of, Tucker Carlson here is to shift the blame of the war onto Israel and exonerate Trump. And now I have to wonder if she isn't one of the 7K people, because she knows better than that. That's the problem with this for me, especially, is she's much smarter than that. So why are you doing that, Krystal? Why are you framing this in a way that clearly no one else sees it? No one else is trying to pretend that Tucker Carlson is just trying to shift the blame for Trump. Trump's guilty too. He enabled it. He's a big boy, right? He could have stopped the weapons. He could have said, no, we're not doing this. Call the military back home. So we're not exonerating him, but also the little voice in his ear that kept telling him it was going to be just like Venezuela or the greatest thing ever. I think we all know what that little voice is, what lobby that little voice represented. And, she tries to act like it's 100% Trump's war. And that, the evil Tucker, again, is just trying to exonerate his buddy that he got elected 3 times by shifting the blame onto poor Israel. They always get blamed for things they do. And just to close this one out, this is an account that is not in the USA, but she had a great point, and I retweeted it, and a lot of people, I think, shared this sentiment, and I share this sentiment, and it's to come full circle to my opening statement here. I never thought I would say this, but I'm glad Tucker Carlson and all these right-wing voices exist, because there is no liberal, centrist, progressive Democrat pundit doing this. And I would go absolutely crazy if nobody talked about how Trump promised the polar opposite of this. So now you understand why the knives are out for Tucker Carlson on both the fake left and the fake right. Mark Levin, Krystal Ball, and Laura Loomer. 2 peas in a pod. Imagine that. Krystal Loomer, Laura Ball, and Krystal Loomer. Terrible. Just terrible people. Krystal Ball too. I mean, her and Kurt Metzger had this. I'm totally jumping all over the place right now. Let me take a sip of coffee. Kurt Metzger had this great bit on Jimmy Dore one time. He was talking about how these people like Kyle Kalinske, for example, when they sell out, they have to like change the way they look or do this like strange kind of thing with their appearance to kind of like physically manifest how fake they feel. So when Kyle Kalinske sold out, he bleached his hair and became Slim Shady, Kyle Shady, whatever. I had a whole thing about it. Kyle Shady, whatever. And you saw the same dynamic with Jordan Peterson. All of a sudden, Jordan Peterson, remember he had that like two-face suit, like the half and half suit, the weird like statement he was making about how he only half believes the things he's saying now, probably, you know. And Krystal Ball and Kyle, to me, just embody like Krystal Ball has always been a fake. I mean, she worked at MSNBC. I mean, I used to think she was very attractive. I mean, she's still like attractive and everything, but physically, but the mental side of the things she supports makes her infinitely less attractive. And it's, as I get older, that kind of stuff really matters, because I can meet someone who's like very physically attractive, and then I start to talk to them. I'm like, oh my God, you're fucking just mentally disgusting. You're fucking gross. You're so shallow and stupid. And then on the other hand, I meet girls who, you know, scream free Palestine, and I'm like, oh my God, that's some fire intellectualism right there. You clearly know what's going on in the world. Girls that are cheering for Iran. You know you got it, babe. That was so corny. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You got Extra Bullet in the mix. What's up, brother? Long time no see. How many fingers do you think BB will have tomorrow? Go with. Yeah, so that whole thing with BB is crazy. So everyone's. And Snow Himbo, I remember. I think I replied to one of your tweets about is BB actually dead? I don't know that he actually is yet. Maybe he is though. So with this the video of him at the coffee shop with the coffee that he sips and it doesn't like go down. Once people analyze that video, I'm like, oh shit, the internet is undefeated. Because when I first saw it, I was like, oh, he is still alive. Because you had a tweet about, or maybe it was Greg. It might have been Greg, not you, Snow Himbo. It was probably Mad Crab. I just kind of associate you guys since you work together. But he said something. I think I responded to his tweet saying that I think Netty Boy is just hiding from the drones, that he's actually still alive, calling shots from somewhere, flying around on his plane. So who knows? I mean, it is odd that he wasn't at that security meeting, because it's easy to put out an AI video of him like solo, right? But it's much more difficult to put out like a video of a security meeting that he's not actually at with him in it, right? With a bunch of other people who were there. So, but also it's like the Trump assassination thing. It's one of those things where I'm so on the fence about it. I still to this day think it could have been staged, maybe was. But also someone was killed there. You know, it's who knows. And I also said with the Trump assassination thing, if it was fake, great job, because of all this fake shit that they dreamed up about him being a Russian spy and all that shit. Anyway, at the very least, I think, just to kind of sum up my sentiments here, Trump is the lesser of two evils for what's going on now. He gave our friends in the Middle East all the rope they wanted and let them hang themselves. And now we're seeing the results of that. And I don't honestly believe it was intentional, but as with any disaster like this,
I've never seen anything like it. I've seen a lot of bad ones. I've gone to a lot of hurricanes, a lot of tornadoes. I've never seen anything like this. This is a bad one.
As with any disaster like this, the carnage that Iran is raining onto Israel as we speak the cleanup is always going to be there. You know, what's going to happen afterwards is the question. And going back to what I said earlier about manufacturing capabilities and Iran being forced into a corner so hard that they've had to survive under sanctions and have become the little engine that could, have become this kind of self-sufficient nation, you know, that Americans piss me off because we are so much less intelligent than our Asian and Russian counterparts. And we don't want to, and listen, America's great for a lot of things too. I love America. I love the Americans. I don't love our leadership, let's be honest. I don't love the Epstein shit. But I do love American books, American films, American music, like all the great things that have come out of the United States, all the great creative things. Even what this right here, YouTube and social media and streaming and like all that kind of shit, all the technology of the last, you know, century, the new millennium, if you will, the iPhone and streaming and all that kind of shit is American. And that's great. That's cool and all. But I think that we are a little bit arrogant about our position in the world. And I actually commend the people of Iran for handing the Americans and the Israelis a well-deserved backhand and a kind of, as Ice Cube would say, chickadee check yourself before you wreck yourself, because big dicks in your ass is bad for your health. That's kind of what Iran just has been saying to the U.S. for the last couple weeks right now. And it's a message that I don't think is being received properly by folks who aren't social media savvy or media savvy at all, like ourselves. The boomers think that, you know, we've already chosen the new leader and are bringing their oil home. If you listen to the Fox News people. But as I just showed you earlier, the Fox News homepage, that might be turning. Anyway, speaking of propaganda, this week, a lot of my show today is just going to be a retread of the past. I almost put together, you know, like MTV used to have the Week in Rock. I almost put together one that said the Week in Propaganda. And I might even just play it right now, just so we have the intro in the film, in the footage here, and I can cut that together in post. But if you've ever heard of the Week in Rock, maybe I should start just doing Week in Propaganda. This is like kind of the intro to it.
Hi, I'm Don King. Welcome to the Week in Rock. We're going to really rock 'em and sock 'em here on MTV.
This Week in Propaganda. From Mondoweiss, a great publication. If you don't follow, you should. A fake scandal involving Rama Dawahi's Instagram likes reveals how desperate pro-Israel pundits are grasping at straws as support for the country plummets in the U.S. I also think this story is a convenient distraction from the Iran war. It kind of keeps people mad at the Muslims, or, you know, at least this demographic. I think I retweeted this guy the other day, and he said, like, this is like the only war in history where everyone's cheering for the other team. Like, most Americans are cheering for the quote unquote enemy. And I did read this morning that a lot of troops are refusing to go, when good for them. Good for them. I totally appreciate that. And God bless Candace Owens. If I believed in God, you know, praise be to Candace Owens for kind of fomenting that dissent too, because she's one of the voices with the biggest audience who's been pushing that hard. And I say this a lot, but it's why the whole crystal ball thing bothers me, because I see a lot of common ground being found between right-wing and left-wing political movements, to the point where maybe some things can actually change. And then you see these fake divisive voices like Krystal Ball coming in and attacking Tucker Carlson, attempting to attack Tucker Carlson, when a lot of people on the quote unquote left, you see it happening. Anna Kasparian and and Chank and a lot of these people coming around. Another good example is Nick Cruz going on Jake Shields' podcast. That is where we need to be. It's like, yo, you might not agree with everything Jake Shields says, but you can unite with him on ending Zyopig control of the U.S. government, right? So just to give you a little recap on this whole scandal, I thought this was hilarious. This was something I was tweeting about all week. At the risk of sounding like a crank, what if FBI just entrapped two mentally ill men, their bread and butter, induced them to commit an attack, also something the FBI does, and supplied them with a non-functioning explosive? Google tear up Texas. So this is the headline from the New York Post. Self-radicalized ISIS protesters used explosive called Mother of Satan inside bombs thrown at Gracie Mansion protest. And this is the first thing I heard about this quote unquote protest was, oh my God, there's this terror attack. And of course, being a person with a functional brain, my first thought when I heard terror attack is, oh, it's a false flag. They're trying to gin up support for a war on the Muslims. Gotta get them Muslims, boy. America! Yay! I love doing that. One more time. America! Yay! Not fuck yeah, yay. So here's tear up Texas. FBI agent told shooter to tear up Texas, raising alarms. An undercover FBI agent on a would-be terrorist opened shortly before he opened fire on a Texas carbon contest. So I tried to go in and get some of that article from The Intercept, but it's a subscription base. So I just kind of took a screenshot of the search results just to show you what that guy was talking about in the previous slide. Google tear up Texas. And so to kind of recap this whole story for you, the story is there was a protest that occurred. This is the actual story. This is like, once I actually kind of like slowed down and like pulled my head out of the propaganda stream that was just like being hit on Twitter. This is the high level story just for you, to break down for you. There was a protest against Mayor Mamdani by good-natured fellas. And apparently there was a counter protest done by Muslims who threw a bomb at the protesters, the people, the nice, good people, the good white people protesting Mamdani and Muslim control of their city. And I want to show you this video of a person that I'm referring to as young retarded boy Jake Lang. And this is how I've been referring to him, because it's obvious when you look at him that, he's definitely special needs. And I say that with all due respect to retarded people. But here is a video of young retarded boy Jake Lang. Here you go.
This was a 9/11 style terrorist attack. No word in his statement mentioned Islam, terrorism, or the perpetrators' names. But instead, he had to go on a rant, some type of therapy session about a white man named Jake Lang. How about the radical Islamic terrorist who tried to murder multiple New Yorkers? Shame on.
Now this guy's good. I love that he has the guy filming him in the background scream like a hype man from a rap group. He's like, murderers, murderers. The guys in the background like hype manning him like they're a rap group. Let's hear that again.
The radical Islamic terrorist who tried to murder multiple New Yorkers. Shame on Zoran Mamdani. And we will be here and stand against him. And by God's grace, Jesus Christ will return on the throne of New York City, and we will see a revival of the Holy Spirit in the country, in the city, which makes the greatest country.
So he seems like a great guy, right? Like just the kind of dude you really want out there representing your movement. Young retarded boy Jake Lang. Now here is a tweet from an account called Radix Verum, excuse me. Jake is a professional provocateur. He was at J6. He tried to form a militia from prison to entrap people, try to get oath keepers to write a document declaring themselves insurrectionists. And now he's an anti-Muslim crusader, always astroturfed and on the news. Was able to run a podcast from the DC Gulag. LMAO, Jake most likely works for both the FBI and ADL, and his sister served in Israel's Air Force. Is Jake dual citizen? Why are Israelis participating in psyops on the American people? And furthermore, why isn't the mainstream media reporting on any of his ties to Israel? So here is this account is great. Ford Fisher. He's someone it's definitely worth following if you don't already and you've never heard of him, because he does a lot of good investigative deep dives into these false flags. NYC Mayor Mamdani releases a statement beginning by condemning Jake Lang and his rally, but then calling the bombing attempt against them even more disturbing. So this is, I think, a lot of people's beef with Mamdani is he kind of, and you guys, you got to understand. I mean, listen, I am not advocating for the guy. If you can win a seat like that, you're obviously compromised in some level, as we've seen with Donald Trump. By the same token, he has to kind of like play the middle as a politician, as an adroit politician, as an adept politician. I think this guy is a classy dude, regardless of whether he's bought or not. I think it's a good thing that people who are espousing the type of views that he has are in office, whether you like him or not. You know, I know some of the people that I associate with are a little more right leaning and like, oh, he's communism, da 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 da. I would tell you to deprogram yourself of everything you've been told about communism, because it was taught to you by the Epstein class. That's what I would say to you if you still have a beef with communism. Remember who taught you about communism? The Epstein people. So unlearn that shit and read a book and understand the things that have been demonized to you your whole life. But let's keep going here. So this is Mamdani's actual statement. And he says, yesterday, white supremacist Jake Lang I refer to him as young retarded boy, Jake Lang, organized a protest outside Gracie Mansion rooted in bigotry and racism. Such hate has no place in New York City. It is an affront to our city's values and the unity that defines who we are. What followed was even more disturbing violence. So he's saying the violence that followed was even more disturbing, and the violence that followed was the fake Muslim bombing campaign that was clearly some kind of a false flag op, as Fisher pointed out, probably helmed by someone at the FBI or the ADL or both in concert. Here's young retarded boy Jake Lang's response. Muslim terrorists and look, excuse me, I would not say that word because I'm a classy guy who doesn't say racial slurs like that. Be mad if you're one of those people who thinks it's like cool and hip to toss that word around as a white person. I'm not one of those dudes. I'm not one of those people who thinks you're a racist if you say it either. I think you look and sound stupid. You definitely like low IQ if you're a white person who says it. You reveal yourself as someone of low class when you do it. But I'm not going to tell you can't or call you a racist. I'm just going to judge you in the way that I see you. But anyway, you can see clearly Mamdani is the problem here. And here is Jake's kind of unhinged, young retarded boy Jake Lang's unhinged follow-up tweet. Yesterday, 2 Muslim terrorists threw a nail bomb at me during my protest. This was an attempted assassination, jihad. They screamed Allah Akbar and tried to murder dozens of white Christians who were peacefully protesting the Islamification of NYC. Seems like you had stronger words of condemnation for me being white. then the Muslim terrorist who tried to kill dozens of innocent protesters and police. Zohran Mamdani needs to resign. You're a Muslim communist Antifa-loving Ugandan invader to America. Deport Mamdani, save NYC. So this guy is clearly an unhinged...
Why don't you go back to your home on Whore Island?
...moron who does not deserve to be taken seriously in any way whatsoever. And that's about the size of it. And just to kind of sum this up, I'm going to show you one more video, one more piece of evidence here to secure my case. Not that I need it at this point. I think you kind of see who this young retarded boy is. But here you go. Here's
Go back, APAC. Go back. That's the APAC building right there. White Christian men are not going to sit around while you turn our children into a bunch of niggers.
Whoa. See? So not a fan of this guy, and clearly interesting that the conservative movement is going to side with this guy against the mayor of New York, the popular elected mayor of New York, because they are complete and total morons. And I think probably the best way to end this is to show you a couple more summarizations of how so this is what I saw when I saw it. So, obviously they try to take this Jake Lang guy as some kind of hero who is just protesting the Islamification. And then these two guys are the real problem, right? So I said, Goy slop. And this guy says, Mamdani, white supremacy is to blame. Reality, 2 Muslims trained by ISIS. These guys are trying so hard to push this nonsense. They sound like liberals did a couple years ago. It's so funny to see these people who laughed at the liberals for doing this kind of stuff now employing the same tactics. And let's sum this up with a thought from the young conservative leader of America, one of the people who I think, whether you like him or not, whether you think he's a federal agent or not, I kind of think he probably is on some level. Here's what his take on this whole situation was. Now the Zionists have started amplifying anti-immigration, anti-Muslim rhetoric to distract the right-wingers from the Iran war. Probably the best way to prevent Muslim immigrants from coming here or attacking us is to stop killing them and destroying their countries for Israel. So again, even a broken clock is right every once in a while, right? Twice a day. Nick Fuentes correctly nailing it on that one and just exposing the pure propaganda of these neocon war pigs. And the only thing that they've got left is...
You're an anti-Semite. You're an anti-Semite.
And the Democrats also have this.
Russia
did it. No.
Russia
did it.
Russia
did it.
They're already trying to spin the Iran war as like it's a Russia thing. Trump's somehow. This is the thing that I think is so funny about the Democrats right now is their entire existence is so built around being against Trump that they have to like play these weasel games when he does something that their donors really like invade Iran, because they clearly support it. They all stood up and cheered for him at the State of the Union when he said he wanted to do it. And they all, kind of were quiet about it until it started going bad. And now suddenly they're all going to try to use it as a political cudgel against them. But they're not going to be any different. They work for the same donors. And that's why you have, this tightrope that they're walking where they're kind of against it, but now they're kind of for it. And I think that for a couple of them, you know, it may or may not work out because not all of them are as publicly tied to the neocon kind of establishment as someone like Kamala Harris is. So like someone like Gavin Newsom, for example, he might be able to get away with suddenly being against the Iran war, because I don't know that he was ever on record kind of being very Zionist. You know, even with his whole "It's Interesting" clip when they asked him about AIPAC, he didn't really have any way to kind of there's not really any, I don't think, any footage. Obviously he comes from a very wealthy background, but he's not really on tape being a vocal ally of Zionism or Israel, I don't think. So correct me if I'm wrong, hit me with something in the comments if I'm incorrect about that. But it's undeniable that there's a lot of paid propaganda to push this war and, you know, make people believe that there's support for it, kind of really just artificial support. One of the unintended side effects of artificial intelligence, I think, that we maybe didn't see coming is the ability to artificially alter your perception of a war or the support for it. You know, for example, you saw for the last couple of weeks, I think a lot of us have been refreshing their feeds on Twitter and stuff and like looking for video of what's going on because it's so censored in the mainstream press. You know, is Israel really being bombed? Well, there's a lot of fake video, a lot of AI of missiles hitting stuff or like decimated, you know, towns that isn't real. The Netanyahu thing's another good example. You know, that first video they put out where he has 6 fingers, it's now we're kind of seeing this whole information war evolve to a new level. So you have to be really careful. Everything, you know, you see, you have to question. And I noticed that there is a very intense effort to use these kind of like Mossad propaganda tactics now on the American public. It's crazy how, for people who have been watching the Gaza thing for a few years and seeing the tactics that the IDF employs and the kind of things that they do, you know, good example being they shot themselves, right? That the whole, like, when they bombed the girls' school and they're like, in the press, like, they're all like, oh no, like it was actually Iran shot a missile that malfunctioned and they shot themselves. I'm like, dude, that's what the fucking IDF people always say. That's their like whole game. And then they go, oh, we're gonna do an investigation. And that's their answer in the press. Oh, we're not sure yet. Like, we're gonna do an investigation. And then the investigation just like by the time the next like atrocity happens, people forgot about the last one in the investigation. So it's a very good way to kind of like brush things off. And anyone who's been paying attention and has a brain can see the kind of like enmeshing of the IDF and the US military with things like that. And the same thing goes for the media. And the reason I bring this up is you've been seeing probably a lot, as I've been seeing, of this lady, Masih Alinejad, the woman whose hair frightens Iran. And I took this screenshot from Google. And I included the header for a reason, so you can make your own judgments as to who's pushing this person, who's behind this person, this personality. But this lady, I call her, every time I'd see her, I'd be like, wow, Malcolm Gladwell is looking pretty hot these days. Inside joke, if you know who Malcolm Gladwell is. Okay, now I got to pull up. Just for my own sanity, maybe that's not a good joke. Is that a good joke? I don't know. We're about to find out. Okay. Maybe not with his current haircut. I thought his hair was bigger, but what do you think? Am I wrong here? Am I wrong on this? Yeah. It won't let me, for some reason, swing back and forth from that to that, but you get the idea. That was my funny joke of the day. So this woman here, let's just to give you an idea of who this woman is, the type of USAID plant that she is. Watch this. This is great. This is, I mean, you can tell why she's really earning her cash. You can tell how hard she works when you see this. Watch this.
As the representative of the Islamic Republic directly, you have tried to kill me 3 times. I have seen my would-be assassin with my own eyes in front of my garden in my home in Brooklyn. In the courthouse, I have seen my would-be assassin confessing that they have been hired by the Revolutionary Guards to end my life. My crime? Simply echoing the voice of innocent people that you killed them. Your leader, Ali Khamenei, he ordered my killing. If it was not the protection of the law enforcement, I couldn't have been here to testify
You
for
know
me
nothing about nothing. You're fake news.
facing the same terrorist regime in my.
So here's another one. You get the idea. Look at how dramatic that is. This woman is, she's really earning her keep. Here's another one.
Democrats making this about their own politics, scoring political points like Kamala Harris. Suddenly, she kept quiet about the massacre. Suddenly, she found a voice condemning the targeted military strike against the killers. So when ordinary people get massacred, you don't have any problem? Who are you?
Donald Trump has dragged us into a war the American people do not want.
So what's ironic about this too is, first of all, look at who's sharing this clip, just to continue down this path. But Kamala Harris actually sounds kind of based here, but now it's easy for her to be the opposition because Trump did it.
He has put American troops in harm's way. I unequivocally oppose this war of choice, and everyone should. And the bottom line, when it comes down to it, is that if we want to stop Donald Trump, I tried so hard and got so far. And Congress must act immediately. The American people do not want our sons and daughters to go into this unauthorized war of choice, and I unequivocally oppose it. Thank you.
Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Especially Democrats.
Isn't she edgy and cool opposing the Democrats? Don't you think? All right, one more. So just to show you, it's not just the Democrats. She's a bipartisan propaganda lady. She does it all. She hits Fox and CNN too. Watch this.
How and why some of the leaders of free world, they're really allergic to the term regime change. Stop being allergic to regime change. Be allergic to dictatorship. This is 21st.
Don't you love how like how over the overemphasis she puts on her own accent? It's almost like she's doing a character. Like what's his name? What's that Russian comedian's name from the 80s? Yakov Smirnov. He's like, I love this country. Like she's totally playing up the accent. Listen to her.
Believe me, getting rid of these barbaric regime and mullahs, the people of Iran can be better allies for America, for Europe, for the free world. So yes, the history will judge those leaders who could manage to end this regime, but they decide to actually, you know, negotiate with this regime and support this barbaric regime instead of supporting the people of Iran. One person like Zoran Mamdani, if I have time. Zoran Mamdani's statement, it really broke my heart. It really did.
Just to bring people up.
It really broke her heart. And let me show you why it broke her heart. Make no mistake, activist Masih Alinejad, whom the PP has brought to the Senate to defend the war against Iran and criticize Spain's stance, is a Zionist agent paid by Israel and the United States who has spent years asking Netanyahu and Trump to bomb her country.
Why don't you go back to your home on Whore Island?
And here are the receipts from usaspending.gov. $800,000. That's almost $1 million from 45 transactions. Just under $1 million, $750,000 to go on TV and advocate that the USA bomb your country. That's the kind of shit that they have in the budget for these wars. Even with USAID gone, they're still going to pay people like her to advocate for their regime change wars that they are failing at horribly. And how does this end up? Where do we go from here? Well, we get to here. This is a recent tweet from March 7th. This is tonight in Tehran, explosions everywhere and people are terrified. At the same time, the Islamic Republic has shut down the internet, leaving millions in darkness and forcing families around the world into painful uncertainty about their loved ones. Yeah, that you advocated for and got paid to. And last but not least, we have this tweet from Trita Parsi showing the effects of U.S. bombing on Tehran. Though it is day, the sun cannot be seen in Tehran today because of all the smoke following the U.S. and Israel bombing of Tehran's oil refineries. People on the ground describe it as Armageddon. History will not forgive Reza Pahlavi, Masih Alinejad, Nazanin Banaldi, and other diaspora Iranians who advocated for this. But the world at large supports Iran, which is crazy because I was just watching before I came on, I was watching Jake Shields, who definitely he goes a little harder on the whole the Jews thing than I would, because I think Jimmy and Kurt have talked about this quite frequently, and I agree with them that you get trapped into using that language to describe Zionism and the Israeli cause for a reason, because then you can be discredited as racist against Jews, anti-Semitic. And so I think it is, and I've seen a lot of people kind of admonishing lefties for downplaying the, I guess, the kind of like relation of the Jewish faith to this movement, because you're kind of giving anti-Zionist Jewish people a pass, which you should, I think, because it's a different dynamic in a lot of ways because of the status quo and the amount of power that this lobby has gained over the years. But it's the same thing as, like, you know, the God hates Fraggle Rock people, you know, those church people. It's like those people are a small sect of Christianity that represent, yes, a very small group of fundamentalist Christians who practice the Christian faith and claim the Christian mantle. And the same is true for Zionists and the people who run our best friend in the Middle East. The difference is the power dynamic. And so I think that's why it's even more, necessary to give Jewish people who are, vociferously opposed to that a pass because of the power that wields, And I think we've reached a tipping point where there's so many people that are kind of like awakening to this reality that it's kind of going to be tough to, like, you really can't get us all at this point, And again, it's not racism. It's not anti-Semitism, it's a very direct and clear criticism of a political entity that has gotten way out of hand. Russell Dobular from Do Dissonance had this phrase that I latched onto, and I have to give him credit for it because he's where I heard it. But the arrogance of impunity, I love that because that describes the Zionists. For years and years and years, they have had complete and total impunity and never been challenged on anything that they do. And now they're being challenged. And that's a good thing, you know? And it's like it took a country like Iran to step up and do that. And I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of the country is looking at, you know, the realities on the ground right now and supporting Iran. Well, let's just come out and say it, you know. And the reason I bring all this up again is I felt guilty. You feel guilty. It's like, the United States is my country, but by the same token, I don't feel guilty because the United States did not vote for this. The people of the United States did not vote for a war with Iran. And so why wouldn't we cheer for the opposition, the successful opposition to it? Just to show you, this is a tweet from a right-wing account. You know, this is a right-wing account. Lefties, my brothers and sisters in the leftist movement here. It's a golden age right now where we can come together with these quote unquote anti-Semites and Nazis. Now you understand too how this whole, it's funny because I hope that a lot of the smarter left people understand that, like, yeah, I didn't get it during the BLM thing. And don't get me started down that rabbit hole either, because I also don't think that George Floyd deserved to be killed. And I would hope that a lot of people looking at the current climate of, you know, ICE murdering and even Ashley Babbitt, it's like police murdering anyone is never okay. Whether it's George Floyd, Ashley Babbitt, the ICE agents murdering people, I'm never cool with it. But that aside, all of that kind of cultural bullshit that gets pushed on us, all that, you know, right, left slop bullshit needs to be brushed to the side. And you can come together with, this is the Kentucky Statesman. So let's read this real quick and talk about it. This is the first war in our history where the majority of Americans are rooting for the enemy to win. 9.7K likes. Let's look at Kentucky Statesman. Proud Christian nationalist. Isn't that interesting? A proud Christian nationalist is on the same side as the pro-Palestine people. You're going to call him a Nazi now and, you know, make fun of him as being a bumpkin redneck who loves guns and shit? No. This is kind of a transitional moment, I think, for American politics, where we realize that, hey, look, Christian nationalists, guerrilla fighter, anti-globalist, former America-only candidate for Kentucky. Christ is, you know, there you go. This guy is a good dude when he says something like this out loud. That looks like it's something from the pro-Palestine movement, right? And so I think that's where we're at when it comes to the current state of things. And while I wasn't correct about Trump starting the war, I think I am correct. I have been correct so far about calling it Operation Epic Fail, because as much as they want to try to paint it as some kind of victory, it's not really looking like that. And I want, just to give you the latest updates, I'm going to show you an example of this. This is from yesterday. Breaking. President Trump says the U.S. has defeated Iran. Well, what does that even mean? What does victory even mean if he can say that? And people will just report it. It doesn't really mean anything at all. when you start to see situations like this. And I want to say before I show you this, I can't vouch for the veracity of these images. There's a lot of fake AI, so there's a good chance that this could be, fake news. But it looks pretty verifiable to me. So 1 minute you have Trump coming out and saying, we got him. I promise we got him. You have video like this on the internet that purports to be much for the veracity of this. And also when you see, I want to point out too, when you look at like a footage like this, right? There are some pictures and footage that I'll see that make it seem like the whole place is just like wrecked and decimated. And then you see footage like this and look at that. Like you can clearly see that like they're doing very carefully targeted strikes because you can see lights on in the surrounding, neighborhoods and off into the distance. So there's still like a strong infrastructure there. And this is from a couple days ago. But it's very clear that it's like they're not being as brutal, or they haven't been as brutal yet as they probably could be. But this is the kind of stuff that you're seeing after Trump comes out and declares victory on the ground. And I think it's a sign of the times, because no one under 60 is buying it. People who have the internet and can see what's actually going on, or at least even if it's a trickle of what's going on, understand that we're not being told even a fraction. The next big scoop that I challenge reporters to get, and I keep tweeting at Max Blumenthal, like, dude, find out what the casualty numbers are. Get your reporters on the casualty numbers, because they're totally casualty laundering and lying about the numbers of dead soldiers to date. I can guarantee that and maybe the estimates that I've seen from, foreign media outlets are extreme in the opposite direction. But even if the numbers are somewhere between what the Trump administration is actually reporting, which is like 15 or something now, versus like the 1,200 that I've seen in sources like, the Soviet and Turkish media and Chinese media, even if it's like the median average between those two numbers, somewhere in between, that's a lot. So be prepared. Some intrepid reporter is going to break through with that news eventually, and it's going to shock everybody. One last item of business before we move to the end of the show today is Netanyahu. So there's been a lot of rumors that he has been hit, because a lot of his top generals have been hit. And I think it was announced that his brother was actually hit in a strike on one of his homes or something like that and killed. So his son has also refrained from tweeting. Now, as I said earlier in the broadcast, my take on a lot of that is like, okay, things are getting hot, so they have to drop out of visibility, right? Other people are getting hit around them, so they're like, okay, we got to go. That is a plausible explanation for why you're not seeing the guy. He's got to stay out of sight, or they're going to hit him. They're going to be able to track him somehow. So that would explain why his son is kind of dropped off social media, which I would imagine his son is nowhere near him at the moment if he's smart. Because they're not going to. The Iranians seem pretty classy. I don't see them just like shooting a missile into Miami to hit Netanyahu's kid or a drone. But hey, could you blame them if they did, considering what's been done to them? I mean, I don't want to sound inhumane, but I'm also a realist. And when you get pushed, I mean, again, we killed their negotiators twice. Twice. Why would you ever negotiate with us again? America! Yay! So the last word is these false flags. Here's another false flag. Suspected ISIS operative arrested in California, found with homemade explosive devices packed with ball bearings. And I want to show you just another example of, I had this funny experience where a bunch of these right-wing accounts were sharing this this story about an ISIS guy who was captured. And oh no, this was a different one. So this was the Old Dominion thing. So this is, let me find this tweet real quick. So if you know much about the false flags that have been happening, one happened at a school called Old Dominion. And apparently the story goes, some of the students on campus choked the guy to death, or, you know, the guy tried to attack and then they killed him. So I tweeted, LOL, they're going to get charged with a federal crime now for killing an FBI agent. And someone laughed about that and responded to my tweet. And then a few, maybe like an hour or so later, this guy jumped in and he hit me with this evidence that the guy was actually a federal agent. So check this out. This is crazy. So as you can see, here's the post. Thread. Suspect in today's shooting at Old Dominion University has been identified as Mohammed Baylor Jalloh. Jalloh had been convicted of providing material support for terrorism after being in contact with ISIL and at least one FBI informant and FBI of an undercover agent. So he has this whole thread that I don't know if I want to go through the whole thing, but in 2016, Mohammed Baylor Jalloh entered the FBI's radar when the FBI confidential human source was in contact with an unindicted co-conspirator allegedly in ISIL. And here's the kind of the documents that prove that. 3, Mohammed Baylor Jalloh, who allegedly killed a retired military officer during ROTC class today, told the FBI informant in 2016 he quit the military after watching lectures by Anwar al-Awlaki, the Islamic cleric and U.S. citizen President Obama killed in a drone strike in 2011. He reportedly admired Mohammed Yusuf Abdulaziz, who killed 5 U.S. service members in 2015. Number 4, Jalloh said that he thinks about conducting an attack all the time, and he was close to doing so at one point, reported the FBI affidavit in 2016. The FBI believed that he had met with ISIL members in Sierra Leone in 2015. Number 5, sometimes you just have to take action. You can't be thinking too much. You have to pick action and take it because time is not on your side. Mohammed Baylor Jalloh allegedly told the FBI informant in their May 1st, 2016 meeting nearly 10 years prior to today's shooting. Number 6, the FBI informant then connected Mohammed Baylor Jalloh to an FBI agent online, also posing as ISIL, who Jalloh promised to send money and procure weapons for in preparation of what he believed would be terror attacks on military personnel in the United States. In June 2016, Jalloh sent the FBI undercover money for weapons, and on July 1st, purchased a firearm for himself, all allegedly for the purpose of killing U.S. military in ISIL-inspired attack. Jalloh was arrested on July 15th, 2016, unable at the time to commit a shooting. In February 2017, the Department of Justice sought a sentence of 20 years in prison for Mohammed Baylor Jalloh, citing his plotting an attack on U.S. military personnel in the United States, and especially his efforts to maximize the lethality of the weapons he researched. By putting the idea of this murder plot into religious terms and by suggesting that murdering members of the U.S. military would be a path to heaven, the defendant showed how strongly committed he was to the deadly ideology of ISIL, the DOJ said of Jalloh in 2017. Mr. Jalloh has always been grateful, peaceful, and responsible person to his flirtation with the Islamic State, Jalloh's lawyers wrote, seeking 78 months. According to his lawyer, He met with the informant for the express purpose of trying to meet a Muslim woman to marry. Mohammed Baylor Jallo's attorney said he had refused the idea of personally participating in an attack, but that the FBI informant shaped and influenced his views in the ensuing months, and through text messages, phone calls, and 2 in-person meetings. So here's evidence that they sculpted him into a terrorist after they connected with him. CHS was an older, apparently versed in the, like CHS1 is, I forget what they, something source, hidden source, something, I forget what it is, was older, apparently versed in the Quran and played confidential something source, confidential hidden source. I forget. That's what CHS stands for anyway. Apparently versed in the Quran and played upon Mr. Jallo's desire to please and reluctance to say no, wrote Jallo's attorney in 2016. At several points in their communication, CHS1 acknowledged he was being too demanding and agreed to relent. Based on the way he represented himself as a knowledgeable, pious Muslim, I thought the FBI informant would be the figure that gave me the direction and helped me, Mohammed Baylor Jallo said in 2016, a decade before actually committing an attack. In reality, my judgment was too foggy to see him for what he was and trying to get me to do something that was completely against my values. I am deeply, deeply sorry to this court. I'm sorry to the American military. I'm sorry to the people of the United States. I'm very sorry for what I've done, Mohammed Baylor Jallo said at sentencing in 2017. Mohammed Baylor Jallo was then sentenced to 11 years in prison and was released from federal custody in December 2024. He then allegedly killed 1, injured 2, and died today in a shooting on Old Dominion University. So the guy was a confidential informant for the FBI. Who knows if they kept him around just so he could do this or they somehow triggered him into doing it. But they clearly did the first time, just like with the Gretchen Whitmer thing. So these psyops are all over the place, and we're getting close to the end of the day. So I want to start by showing you there has been a lot of really killer, and you've probably seen some of this, but there's been a lot of really great AI satire of the current war, and I think this is one of the better examples of that. I'm going to show you right here. So take a look at this. This is from Jake G TV on X. POV, you try watching the Iranian regime change, but the anchors keep noticing.
Probably has absolutely nothing to do with the Epstein files.
Right, like I'm sending my son off to Iran tonight. Let's see if we can find your son. Timmy, you're going to war. Pack your bags. Israel needs your help.
Haven't you seen Europa, The Last Battle? I'm not dying for the synagogue of Satan. That's actually based.
Good call, Timmy. So all of a sudden, people just forgot about them burning the satanic ball statue. But let's see what it looked like in Iran the morning of February 28th.
Now, here it is, just some peaceful bombs. No word on whether Trumpenstein got the Ayatollah, but he did end up bombing a bunch of children, as Jeffrey Epstein would say. Whoops. But let's hear what the normies are saying about this whole thing.
Do you support Project Epstein Fury?
Of course. Every night I pray that my kids will fight for the Jews.
I love the name of the restaurant in the back. This is so brilliant.
Alone, I've got bread and circuses to get to.
Hey, man, are you glad your taxes are being sent overseas?
Dude, my wife just downloaded Hinge last night and $7 for gas. Literally wish I was chosen at this point.
How do you feel about sending our troops off to war again? Oh, gosh, not another damn lefty. Bro, they are 1 week away from a nuke. Wow, scary.
4D chess. This is so well done. I love the like subtle kind of stuff in the background.
Do you support the Iran war?
Bro, they're going after every country that doesn't have a Rothschild banking system. And no, I'm not vaxxed.
I think I'm in love.
Thanks, Tom. You should definitely grab her number.
But this just in, a U.S. airstrike has destroyed a school in southern Iran. Ching Chung joins us live from the tragedy.
We're here outside the school where devastation has arisen.
How could anyone do this to innocent people?
Well, they do eat foreskins.
We got 2 Palestinian foreskins and 3 Christian white ones.
Yes, chef.
Idiot. They want the jerky on top of the pizza. Make it again.
Okay, that's pretty anti-Semitic. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that. I don't know if YouTube is going to cancel my stream for that or not, but that was not intentional. Let's jump up here a little bit and watch a little bit more of this before we jump out.
has to say to the American Goyim.
The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future. And it is a noble mission.
So in other words, he had two choices. Let the Steinberg files get out or sacrifice Goyim to protect the pedos.
Absolutely brilliant stuff. Follow this guy on Twitter, Jake G TV, Jake G _official. And just to show you one more thing here that I thought was pretty hilarious. Well, before we get into that, I wanted to show you guys
this not for now. We're doing this for the
another piece of video, because just one more point I wanted to make about the propaganda and kind of justifications for this war, because they're trotting out everything that they've always trotted out as far as war propaganda goes, including the, oh, let's do it for the gay people type, the thing. So I want to show you this. This is great. A lot of people, Tim Dillon did a whole rant about Jake Paul here, but check this out. This is President Trump from an interview with Jake Paul.
A bit shocked too. Like everyone else in the world was like, this is the greatest thing. And I think what you're doing is phenomenal. And I was shocked that so many activists like in America didn't like it. But meanwhile, they're like, oh, well, we support women. We want women to have all these rights. Meanwhile, you're liberating the women of Iran. And then they have an issue with it. I thought that was very confusing.
We support gays, but they throw gays off the buildings.
Yeah.
Okay, we support this. I mean, the things they do, and they're fighting. But I think I have tremendous support on this. This is something that's been incredible. I have the best poll numbers I've ever had now.
Yeah,
and it's not because of this. I think we've just, the economy is great. It's a little bit of it.
So when I saw this, my comment was, oh, this is two men who have been beaten badly recently sitting down to have a conversation. And this is what I really wanted to show you, because I thought this was hilarious response to this. The whole, like, we're doing it for the gays. Until I'm out of ammo or I'm out of blood, I will fight for homosexuality in Botswana. That is the American empire summed up in a friggin' incredible meme. Botswana too. It is always, because we're always fighting for some abstract freedom in some random country that we never heard about until a couple weeks ago, because they found oil there or something of that nature. So before we go, I got a little treat for you. A little bit of a treat to close out the show today. Ben Shapiro has been in the news a lot lately, and I stumbled across this thread that I thought was absolutely hilarious. So as our kind of funny cap off to today's little talk, I'm going to show you this hilarious thread of what the internet did to Ben Shapiro. So this whole thing starts with this guy going, for every 1,000 likes, I'll make Ben Shapiro's eyebrows bigger. So it gets to this one. And it looks like, did he take his hair? It looks like he almost took like a close-up of his hair up there and made it into his eyebrows. And it gets to the point where it's starting to look like Russian hats now. And the internet just does not stop, Then pretty soon it's bat wings. Then it's eagle wings with complete with shadows and everything. Now he's taking off with his massive eyebrows. Then it becomes It's just one big eyebrow in the solar system. I love it. Start with 100. Come on, bro. So a lot of good. A lot of good stuff in here. Anyway, Ben Shapiro's eyebrows, the treat of the week. Wow. This AI is getting out of control, you guys. His eyebrows get a little fuller. What happened to Ben Shapiro? My God. All right, you guys. Well, that's going to close it out for this week. Hopefully next week we have better news, but I'm going to get back on Twitter and resume refreshing my feed, checking the news. I don't think that your boy Benji has been declared missing in action just yet, but the most recent video available seems to have been debunked. Is this AI generated or is it real?
אני מת על העם שלי. איך הם מתנהגים, פנטסטי. אתה רוצה לספור את מספר אצבעות? אתה יכול להראות לנו? פה.
He's got all 5 fingers.
ראית? יפה מאוד. לחיים. אני חושב שלמסר לאנשים שיוצאים ומתאווררים. לצאת להתאוורר, אבל ליד...
People are saying that because he didn't, the coffee didn't change at all. He didn't actually, it's AI, but it's not AI, it's real footage. This guy says it's real. Oh, now it's now they're gonna say it's a double or something. Who knows? The cafe even posted about it on Instagram. Yeah, see, I don't necessarily believe that one's AI yet. The first one with the 6 fingers, definitely, but this one, we'll see. We'll see. I definitely want to believe that it's over, Johnny, but it does look like it's legit. And I think also, like I said, we're seeing this war through such a limited lens that it like to some like for based on a lot of stuff I've seen, things are like really bad. But then you see those pictures of him in a coffee shop somewhere in Israel, and then I've read things from people that are on the ground that are like, yeah, stuff's shaken up, but it's not like they're hitting. Iran isn't like blowing up entire city blocks. They're very targeted strikes that they're doing. So they're being, I think, very precision, very surgical with how they're conducting themselves, which is something the U.S. I don't think has the possibility to accomplish or even the desire to accomplish, because there's so much money in being wasteful and just, dumping a bunch of weapons somewhere. We'll just throw a zillion more dollars at it and at the defense industry. And it really speaks a lot to our culture, though. And our own corruption is going to be our downfall, because like I said earlier, we forced Iran into this corner where they had to be self-sufficient and independent and create their own weapons and build this infrastructure that they've built that, no matter how hard the US hits them, they still keep firing shots. And it's going to be interesting to see, because now the Trump people are like, oh, this is going to be a lot longer than we thought, Yeah, it's going to be Afghanistan again. They're going to, what do you really think you're going to go in there? And how does it end? Can the American people really reel it back at this point? Again, we didn't vote for this. No one in this country, aside from, the people that Netanyahu pays, like Lindsey Graham, support this. None No one in America is like, yeah, I can't wait to do war with Iran. And that's why, again, I think that it's unfair to attack people who supported Trump, because what other option did they have? Jill Stein? Yeah, sure. But like, that's not a candidate that's going to win. Unfortunately for us, we still live in the world of the duopoly, and hopefully that will change. Hopefully everyone is so mad now that we all decide in unison to vote for third-party candidates in the next cycle. If Republicans all vote for the Libertarian and Democrats all vote for the Green Party person, both those parties will get public funding, and then we'll have 4 political parties. How great would that be? You know what I mean? 4 viable political parties, if that happens. Now, you could argue that with the way that Citizens United works, once those other 2 parties get to the level where they can take PAC money and stuff, they'll become corrupted too. And being the cynic I am and the black-pilled motherfucker that I am, I understand that sentiment. But hey, it's the next logical step if you think that voting can change anything. And I don't think it's really changed much as far as the president goes, but I think it does help at a local level. And eventually, if we throw enough Molotov cocktails, and I mean this metaphorically, enough metaphorical Molotov cocktails into the way the system works, and we have the internet now, we have mass communications, we could all agree next election cycle, hey, if you typically vote Democrat and you're mad at the Democrats, vote third party. Everybody, let's all agree to vote third party in the next couple cycles until we get a couple more parties to a point where they're publicly funded, and then we have more options on the ballot. And we can tell the Democrats to go fuck themselves. We can tell the Republicans to go fuck themselves, because the way it is right now, we can't really do that. And then hold those newer parties to account, because I think if they start winning elections, if the Green Party and the Libertarian Party start winning elections, it's all downhill from there, And then it's up to the voters to keep the party honest and make sure that they don't get corrupted by big money. But I've yacked enough for one day. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining me on my soapbox today. And I very much appreciate you. I've been, economically things have been, I'm sure you're going through it too. So I haven't really been cranking out as many videos as I would like, and this is hopefully going to change, but I always make promises I can't keep. So you're going to keep seeing me on Sundays here in the meantime, and hopefully I can get more content cranked out in a more timely fashion, but we'll see how that works. I'm optimistic, and I again thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. Stay safe out there.